Guys, I just had the most chaotic week of my life. Finishing renovating and moving into a new house. I haven't really gotten time to sit down and read the new Shonen Jump manga, and it's been more than a week. On Monday, things finally slowed down, and I was ready to give it a proper read when a power outage in all of Portugal and Spain left me in the dark for almost an entire day. But today I can finally sit down. And although it's pretty late, I can finally reread the new weekly Shonen Jump manga, Nice Prison. That was not nice at all. Okay. Before we dive into Nice Prison, I need to let the newcomers know that this is a gag manga safe place. We are me and Roboka believers in here. Gravity Boys is my favorite X title of all time, and I enjoy titles like Mitama Security, Mori King, Murakami, Shugomaru. I often defend the gag series that debut in Weekly Shonen Jump. I absolutely hate people that just dismiss the genre altogether, especially having in mind that this is a genre that has been a staple of Weekly Shonen Jump for longer than Battle Shonens have. But I understand that, yes, the main series in the magazine have all been action series, and so the fanbase will be flooded with action fans that may not like or want to read gag series. But one thing is to not want to read them, other is to actively be angry that the magazine is featuring these series. That said, a bad series is still a bad series, and Nice Prison is very much a bad series. The protagonist of this one is a new prison guard called Adachi, who's been tasked to guard the prison city Nobanashi. Like the title implies, this is essentially a city of prisoners that's been closed off, a city of prisoners where all prisoners are batshit insane and the prison guards aren't strong enough to control them. There's only one person that can control all of the chaos, that is someone called Mitsubashi. But Mitsubashi is not a guard, it's actually the so-called supermodel prisoner. Born into the prison itself, Mitsubashi loves the place, and during that it has become such an uncontrollable place, he decided to get caught in order to help the place flourish back again from inside. From there on out, it seems like the manga is going to be following the formula of every chapter having this main prisoner antagonist causing problems, which then Mitsubashi appears and beats them and solves the problem. This is essentially the first time in this series where I've actually read 2 chapters instead of just one, but honestly the second chapter I don't think it's changed my opinion one way or the other. The obvious plot hole of why didn't Mitsubashi just become a prison guard, which is something that isn't even referenced in the manga itself, aside, the premise of the manga isn't really the problem. Gag manga can work with pretty much any scenario, especially a surrealist one like Nice Prison. Rather, I think that there's 2 core problems with the series. So let's start with Adachi herself. This character has a very defined classic role in this manga. She's the straight man of the series, plain and simple. Everyone else is absolutely mad, they make no sense, so she's here to represent us, to have the reactions that we would have, to assure us, the readers, that yes, this is weird, this is stupid. A role that most manga in the genre seem to have. The problem is that that's all that she is. She doesn't actually do anything during the 2 chapters that I've read other than reacting to the stuff that is happening. If we even dare to compare Nice Prison with Super Policeman Shoujo, we start seeing the problems with Adachi. Ippongi has a very similar role within her own manga, but not only is she actively important to the story itself, often actively doing stuff and even solving the problems within the manga, the story starts right from chapter 1 to explore and develop the relationship between Ippongi and Shoujo himself. Bondo and Roboko, from me and Roboko, are very similar. Even Sanagi and Shugomaru in Protect Me Shugomaru, for example, are. The relationship between the main cast in Nice Prison, however, is extremely superficial. My second point is the rest of the sidecast. Nice Prison reminds me a lot of kids gag manga. If you ever read a Korokoro comics gag manga, you might understand what I mean by this. These gag mangas seem to be constantly worried that kids will just stop reading them, so they have tons and tons and tons of gags in pretty much every single panel, which in turn barely lets the manga breathe and set up better or more complex jokes. Now, this is the part where I understand that 1, comedy is subjective, and 2, there's probably a language and cultural barrier between the manga and me. But I think the only joke I found genuinely funny was the end of the second chapter, where they were talking about how they would look forward to meeting the rest of the new faction that was just introduced, and then we just reveal that all of them, or pretty much all of them, were dead. And look, I'm willing to accept that gag manga isn't just going to be hits. If even 1 in 4 jokes are funny to me, I'm good with that, as it keeps me laughing for long enough to keep me entertained to continue to read it. But this is definitely not the case here. And sure, 1 to 2 jokes that I find funny per chapter is not the worst ratio, but having in mind just how bad most of the jokes are, it just leaves a bad taste, man, and it makes me want to stop midway. And I get that the sheer number of jokes is kind of tied with the premise of the manga. The main idea is this is just this wild prison where everywhere you look is just filled with prisoners doing wild, crazy things, which leads to panels and pages full of prisoners just doing this random, surreal, and nonsensical stuff. But what annoys me the most is that for how much stuff that is happening all over these chapters, you kind of reach the end of them and automatically forget all of it. These wacky prisoners with these unique designs doing this weird stuff aren't really characters. They may appear for 1 panel or 2, and then we move on to the next one. They have no impact. They have no character. They are nothing but stock characters in the background. For how crazy everyone is, the characters bar the main 2 are unimportant, boring, and forgettable. I think jokes are important in gag manga, that goes without saying, but what I think is even more important than that is a good cast of characters. In real life, you are more likely to laugh at a joke told by someone you like than someone you don't, and I think the same can be applied in manga. If the cast sucks, if the cast isn't likable or interesting, how can you enjoy the jokes that they are telling you? And I think that's the main problem. The reason why I'm kind of rejecting this manga when I enjoyed so many others that came before it. So I think the question of, do I think it will survive, is very obvious. Not only do I think the quality of the manga is subpar, I'd even call it the worst weekly Shonen Jump manga I've read since Our Blood Oath all the way back in 2020, but I just think this is not a good time for a new gag manga in general. We already have Miyanroku as this meta parody gag manga, we have Super Psychic Policeman Shoujo as the more traditional gag comedy, and we even have Witch Watch if you want something a little bit more serious, a little bit more story-driven and action-focused. So where do you fit any other gag manga in here? The answer is very simply that you don't. The bar for another series in the genre to succeed right now in the magazine is very, very high. You need something that is really good and that captures people's attention right away, and Nice Prison is very, very much not that. I'm hoping the next manga is better, because I've been having some tough weeks, and Nice Prison was not the cleansing I needed. But if you want to know my opinion on the next manga, stay tuned and maybe, just maybe, subscribe to the channel as I review every single new weekly Shonen Jump's first chapter. If you want to see the previous ones, there's a playlist right now on the left, and if you watch till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.